Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Direct Booking Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Boyles, and today I have Vivian Yip with me. Now, Vivian is the founder of Hestia by Corporate Rentals USA. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you so much.
It is amazing to have you on today.
I appreciate the invitation and your interest in midterm rentals.
Yes. So let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you do.
And I live in Austin, Texas. I used to be of the corporate world for over 2 decades. My last stint was at Apple, where I worked there for 7 years. I was launching iPhones, so iPhone 12 was my last project, and if anybody knows about iPhone 12, that was the launch of the pandemic. So, it was particularly hard and challenging, but, we got through it. And I dreamt of a life where I could escape the corporate world in 2017. So I started putting in the effort to learn real estate investing while I was not working. So basically, every waking moment that I wasn't at my corporate job, I was learning about real estate, taking care of my family with the dream of never having to ask for another day off because I just love to have fun. I really like traveling. My favorite thing to do is to eat my way around a city, walk everywhere as possible. And honestly, when you only have 2 or 3 weeks in a year and some of that time gets consumed by people's weddings or whatever, you don't get that chance to really enjoy those extended vacations, and that's what I really want in my life is to be able to live in someone else's city and make it my own experience and enjoy the foods and the cuisine and learn people. Kinda like being like a Anthony Bourdain, one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
travel journalists ever, and that's just kinda how I wanted to see my life as opposed to sitting behind a desk. So, I pursued real estate, my husband and I started flipping houses, and we have now 9 properties in Austin, Texas. We're not brave enough yet to go and invest other places, although we're in a fractional investment for 10 units in Cartersville, Georgia. And I learned how to cash flow on accident in expensive places like Austin because everybody knows like cash flow is the most important thing. Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about it. Cash flow kings, those guys talk about it. But it's really hard when the acquisition price of a property is so high and then the rental rates aren't on par with how to break even on your mortgage payment. So I learned that if you throw furniture in it, you can host it as a short-term stay, but that's a lot of work. And then I accidentally pivoted into midterm rentals during the pandemic when Airbnb started canceling reservations. I had to figure out a way to control my own revenue. And so that's when I learned that midterm rentals was a thing, kind of on accident, and I've been addicted to it ever since. I sold that property to reinvest in more, and now 6 of those 9 properties are midterm rentals.
Wonderful. Well, that's why I have you here today to talk about midterm rentals because it's something that I'm hearing more and more about. And I'm hearing other people that have been short term rentals pivoting into midterm rentals, sometimes because of regulations coming into their area, other times because it's something that works better for them and their lifestyle. So I can't wait to hear more about it. But I want to hear a bit more about your life because Apple, that sounds so cool. I am an Apple junkie. So if you were here in my office, you would see all my products are Apple. But you also have a Canadian connection, don't you?
I do. I grew up almost my entire life in Canada with several stints in Hong Kong, and I was born in the US, but I lived in Vancouver, Calgary. I graduated from University of Toronto, and I moved to the US in '05 for a job.
Wow. And then you stayed.
And then I stayed, and it's interesting because I've almost spent equal amounts of time in the US as in Canada, but I would say culturally, I'm still pretty Canadian.
Yeah, I think anybody who is Canadian and that leaves, I was away 21 years, and I think my Canadianness maybe came out even more being away. So yeah, no, I totally get it. And why Austin, Texas?
So, after I moved to Chicago for a job relocation several years later, I got an offer at Apple, and then they relocated me to Austin, which is interesting
Hmm.
because I stayed in a midterm rental when I transitioned as well, but that I would call that more like a corporate rental, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Great. Cool. Well, let's get into the midterm rental side of things. First, can you tell us exactly what is a midterm rental?
So, midterm rentals are basically defined by your county. Typically, it's 28 days or 30 days and more, depending on how your county or city defines what a short term rental is. And a midterm rental is basically anything between that short term rental versus a 12-month lease. In Austin, a 30-day rental becomes a midterm rental. And in my definition, a midterm rental is basically a short term rental, fully furnished kind of property, but you only host extended stays. And if you're lucky to be in a place where there's no regulations, then you can also put in and fill in the gaps with short term stays to maximize both occupancy and revenue.
What is sort of the pros and cons of having someone there 30 plus days?
Let's start with the cons. I think that people
Okay.
are most terrified of tenancy, and it's
Mm.
true. I mean, you can have someone squat in a 30-day property, but when I talk to an eviction attorney, he's like, they can squat in a short-term rental property. As soon as they access your property, you're at risk. So you just have to be comfortable with that. Then there's, obviously you can have ways to write your lease that makes it less risk for you and de-risk your business that way. There's so many pros. I would say that I never have to deal with complaints about parties or noise. It's so much less touch. Like, I literally check in with them once every 15 to 30 days just to see if they need anything. Every now and then I'll hear from them if they need maintenance on something small. The biggest one is your bottom line is better because when you do midterm rentals, you only give them a starter package of consumables like the toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, and all that kind of stuff, and then they're responsible for replenishing the rest. So if you think about how much a pack of toilet paper costs these days, it's like $16 to $18 for a decent sized pack, and then paper towels are another 20 bucks or 12 to 20 bucks depending what size you get, and that all adds up in these short-term stays, and in midterm rentals, it's so easy. The operation side is easy. The harder
Yeah.
side, the con is the lead generation can be a bit tough. But once
Okay.
you get them in the property, it's smooth sailing.
And are there any other sort of unique needs of midterm rental guests versus short term? Like, what are they really looking for?
I think the biggest difference between someone transitioning from short-term rentals into midterm rentals is number 1, clean out your garage. That garage is no longer a storage unit. Like, people wanna park in there, maybe they've had to relocate from their current property and they wanna use that garage space to hold some of the things that they want to have with them. Maybe their house is being worked on by contractors and they have sentimental items or valuable items that they don't wanna get stolen. Clear your garage, number 1. Number 2, million people in the US sleep with a CPAP machine, including myself, okay, for sleep apnea. And a lot of
Hmm.
short term rentals don't have nightstands. So,
Yeah.
super simple, right? Just put a nightstand in there. And then the third thing I would say would be a dresser in every bedroom. In short-term rentals, you can expect that they'll be happy with one of those luggage holders and they'll live out of a suitcase for a weekend. But if they're going to stay in your property for 30 days, maybe even 6 months to a year, they want to be able to put their stuff somewhere. So I would say
That's a
those are
good
probably the
point.
top 3. And then for us, with our properties, we ensure that they're fully stocked so that people can really have a great meal and cook and really live life like they would if they were in their own home.
Yeah, I guess it's just thinking that they're going to be put yourself in the guest's shoes and see how they would stay for a longer period of time. Because I know that in my property, storage isn't a big thing because people are there for a short amount of time.
Yep.
But if I was going to be staying there 30 days, yes, dressers, closets, places to put your stuff, places to hide your suitcases. You don't have to look at them every
Yes.
day.
And a dedicated workspace is probably one of the things that people really want because we're still in this kind of hybrid workforce environment where some people get to stay at home and work for a few days and then go into the office, or they work from home the entire time. So having a comfortable workspace and high speed internet is always great.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk about your lead generation. How are you actually getting these guests that to come and stay for midterm rentals?
There's multiple sources. There's Airbnb, of course. Bigger Pockets was talking about a statistic of, about a year ago that 25% of nights booked on Airbnb are for 30-day stays and more. Now, I would say maybe half of my bookings come from Airbnb, but the other half I get from direct bookings that I've, created relationships with or through realtors, sometimes even Furnish Finder, but a lot of them come from my own lead gen business. And that's really helped us out.
So it's relationships, isn't it? It's relationships building. Do you just ring up a company and say, "Hey, I'm here, this is what we're offering. Is this something that your employees need?"
Absolutely. Not even their employees. When I started this business about a year and a half ago, there's only me, there's 24 hours of me. And I decided I could either go pursue the corporate space or I could pursue the insurance space. And people are like, well, what's insurance? Well, insurance temporary housing is really, really big business here in the US. If you live in a single family home and your home were to have water damage, maybe your dishwasher, exploded or had a leak, or maybe your air conditioning unit or your water tank is, next to your living room or whatever happens, it explodes. You've got a big damage where you have to move out and contractors need to work on your place for the next 3 to 4 months. Your insurance basically allows you to have funds, if you have the right coverage, to move out of your home and into a temporary home. And we service a lot of those clients that have to move into a temporary home. So, going back to 24 hours in my day, I spent all of last year, I can't even tell you the hundreds, if not thousands of phone calls that I made, emails, creating all my email lists, developing relationships, and building that out so that I could recession proof my business. Okay. We think about recession. People keep talking about this, recession that might be coming. And if decided that if I was going to choose between focusing my effort on the insurance space or the corporate space, I chose insurance because it's recession proof. And in corporate at the time, the big companies were all having massive layoffs. And it didn't feel right to me to call them and be like, hey, who are you relocating right now? Because chances are they probably just had a really big layoff. So this year, I'm on a different mission, not only to continue nurturing those insurance relationships that we've built, and has become really fruitful, but to also pursue figuring out how to expand into the corporate space.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a really good point with the insurance side of things. And for those that are having, especially here in BC, where regulations are coming in, very harsh regulations, midterm rentals is definitely an area that I can see people pivoting to.
Yep.
How else are you going to keep your business afloat when the government's trying to shut you down, which is quite sad. But let's not dwell too much on that. I want to hear more about midterm rentals. And what about the relationships in the community and your neighbors? I know that a lot of people, are saying, "Oh, my neighbors, I don't want an Airbnb in my neighborhood," and things like that. How is it for when you're providing a midterm rental versus a short-term rental?
So far, I've been doing this for 4.5 years. I've honestly never had a problem with any of my neighbors because I see the same consistent people coming in and out. I do have a property management company here in Austin. We have, a total of 21 properties right now. And my partner had a complaint from the HOA on one of the properties that we manage. And she actually sat with the HOA board of directors and said, honestly, we're just helping people that have to move out of their houses. And she was able to get the HOA director to sign on one of her properties. So the buy in is there. I think when you explain to people that you're just helping people that are relocating, they're transitioning, they've had a house fire, and this is a business of hospitality where you're helping people and we're serving a real market need that doesn't have to do with partying or loud music or inappropriate behavior. So it's honestly a super boring but super lucrative business.
Right. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Well, that's great because I think neighbors sometimes can be a real issue depending on the type of guests. And if you're just opening your property up to Airbnb, and the other OTAs, you just never know who's going to be walking through that door. Your neighbors.
correct. A friend
Yeah.
of mine sent me a photo that she just hosted her first booking.com guest. And she's like, "Never again," and she sent me a photo of her Ring camera with the guy getting arrested in front of her front, driveway. It's like, I don't know about I've never done Booking.com, have you? I'm too scared.
Well, yes, because I'm in England. So my family's in
Ah,
England, and Booking.com is very prevalent in Europe and England.
got it.
Yeah, so cool. So this is really great to hear more about midterm rentals and the pros of it. And yeah, maybe you feel like it's sort of the boring side of the business, but I would rather have boring than be putting out fires.
Hey, boring and cash flowing at the same rate of STRs with less work is honestly super attractive. Right?
Yeah.
Your freedom of time of not spending your Sundays chasing cleaners to see if there's any damages in the property after they left, or making sure that you have a turnover for the same day check-in, or what do I need to drop everything and go buy and replenish supplies? I mean, those days are gone. You're only doing those like once every few months. It's once you experience the freedom of midterm rentals, it's a game changer.
Yeah, sounds amazing. So if someone's listening to this and they're going, this sounds amazing, but how do I get started? What would be your advice?
It depends on what stage they're at. I would say that if you're in the short-term rental game and you want to move into midterm rental, there's an entire different strategy from pricing to calendar management to legal things like leases and background screening. So it's a totally different game that you're going to need to spend some time and get educated on. Luckily, I have a course for that, so you can reach out to me for more information. And it's very affordable. And for someone that's just starting out, or maybe they don't own a property, there's other ways to do it. You can co-host, you can do rental arbitrage. If you need to furnish a property, I have an agreement with Court Furniture, which is the nation's largest furniture rental company. So you can contact them and just say, I want to rent furniture as part of the Hestia program. And you can get significant discounts and you can rent your furniture as opposed to trying to drop, thousands and thousands of dollars on furniture right up front. And you can
Mhm.
eventually purchase it as well if you want to. So there's like a rent to purchase program, which is great. So it's less money up front. So
Mhm.
there's multitudes of ways to tackle it. You have to first determine who your avatar is. So in this business, we talk about avatar, right? In midterm rentals, there's about 8 different avatars, the major ones. So we're talking the insurance claims, we have government, we have corporate relocations, travel nurses, construction teams, academics, travel nurses, things like that. So you have to determine who you're trying to attract, just like you would a short-term rental, and then cater your listing and all your amenities towards that, and you will get the right guests that you're trying to attract.
It's just yeah, it's pivoting, isn't it? From if you're going from short term to midterm. There's things to think about, but also knowing who your ideal guest is. And if that person is someone who is going to be staying 30 plus days, it's knowing what they need and what you can do to support them. And that in turn will bring them in because they see that you're set up and you're a perfect fit for them, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah, cool. So, what is next then? What do you think is coming sort of next with this sort of broader landscape of hospitality relation to short term and midterm rentals?
This is a topic that I've been thinking about for a couple of years now because I kind of saw the sliding scale of what's happening with Airbnb and short-term rentals. Regulations are changing. People are becoming a lot more aggressive towards and animosity towards quote unquote Airbnb and short-term rentals in general. And I thought I discovered this midterm rental strategy, which I kept to myself for a long time, but then I had all these people that would reach out to me and say, "Hey, I need something in South Austin or I need something in another city." And I realized that instead of holding all these as secrets and change my mindset to one of abundance and start helping other people do lead generation. But I felt like I couldn't help everybody. Like I wanted to stay in the single family space because there's a niche there. So now I created a brand that represents a beautiful single family home space that someone can move into and expect a consistent set of amenities, a consistent set of hospitality. And that's when I created Hestia. Do you know what Hestia means?
No, I don't.
She's the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
the Hestia brand to me is a accumulation of a curated group of other property owners that have single family homes, that love hospitality like I do, that want to be rewarded for the kind of property and hospitality they give out. Like, nobody ever gets mad at the Four Seasons for charging more money per day compared to the Super 8. It's the same kind of building, it's the same kind of asset, but the value is different. So if you change the value and you change your clientele, then you're really running a different kind of business. So that's the idea behind Hestia. It's about collaboration instead of competition and coming together to offer a consistent service and brand experience for the companies that will pay for it. So that is what I see in the future is being able to differentiate yourself from the sea of competition out there. As short-term regulations continue to tighten, people are going to start sliding into midterm rentals before they go into long-term rental. Because for many people, those short-term numbers are the only ones that worked, and midterm rental is their hope that is going to work before they go into long-term rental. Because the reason why they went to short-term first was because long-term rental numbers didn't work to begin with.
Mhm.
So, I see a saturation in midterm rentals, and it's already coming.
Do you think there's room in the space right now?
Oh, yeah. When I talk to realtors, many of them have no idea what it is. So, I created a fast track course that's free for realtors to really learn what midterm rentals are, so they can speak intelligently about midterm rentals and help them attract business to people looking to invest in midterm rentals. Because Bigger Pockets just recorded something with a friend of mine, and she's gonna talk all out about midterm rentals. As soon as that episode comes out, I see a flood of people starting to think about investing in midterm rentals.
Yeah. No, I can see that it's going to be a big trend coming forward with, for those real estate investors, as well as for those who want to provide hospitality
True.
and want to take care of their space. I know that there's a lot of hesitation for long-term renting, thinking that, they can't get in to see the house. They can't see if it's being taken care of and that. So a midterm rental seems to be a bit of the best of both worlds.
It is. It's a really great balance. And
Yeah.
honestly,
And
like, you came from
yeah.
England, right? I
Yeah.
heard that a lot of people, they don't rent unfurnished places. They rent furnished homes in general as a normal practice. Is that true?
It's changed a bit, but when I first went to England, 21 years ago, yes, I'd rent a flat or a house and it would be furnished because I wasn't going to go out and buy all this new furniture, but I lived in a house with three other girls and everything in the house was furnished. We could just ring up our landlord and say, we need a new oven. And then that
Yeah.
one would deliver, to the next day. So I see that still happening probably in bigger cities. But once you moved out, once you're a bit older, you've got stuff with you, then you're
It
looking
is.
for unfurnished.
Yeah.
I don't think you would see many in North America furnished long-term rental.
Not unless you do corporate stays. So there's a friend of mine, he does midterm rentals with the US government, and he has leases from 2 to 5 years fully furnished.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
when I lived in Hong Kong, my mom was a bank executive, so we stayed in a fully furnished for 5 years at a time. Can you imagine getting a 5-year midterm rental contract?
Be amazing. Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that corporate space is a whole different a whole different area. Like, our quality is great, but there's still some work to do to get into the big guy.
Yeah. So what do you think they're looking for?
So, they're looking for accountability. They're looking for consistency. They're looking for quality. In fact, I didn't know this until I went to the conference in Tucson last month for the CHIPA conference, which is the Corporate Housing Providers Association. But before every reservation, they send in an inspection company and they'll do an 84-point checklist
Wow.
before they allow their guests to check in. So this stringent quality is like it's super tight. So that's
Yeah.
something that I would love to get our brand to, but we're not there yet. We still have quite a bit of work to get to that level.
Mhm. But it sounds like you've really found the right niche for you right now. 50% of your bookings coming in direct through these relationships that you have built,
Yep.
which is massive. Like that is really an amazing accomplishment. So kudos to you because a lot of people are, they look at short-term rentals, midterm rentals, and the first thing they think of are the platforms
Yeah.
so that they can be the answer to all their prayers. And we know that yes, they're good for a certain extent, but they're not the answer to all of our prayers. So kudos to you for really doing that. So I need to ask you, what does direct booking success mean to you?
It means having the freedom from anxiety, okay, of losing your business potentially overnight. For me, it's not about if you lose your business overnight with Airbnb, it's when. I mean, I hear it all the time. I belong to pretty much every Facebook group there is out there in the local market, and literally every other day my account was shut down. I have 50 properties. My account was shut down because my guests complained about a camera that doesn't even exist. Whatever it is, it's scary, right? I'm going to tell you something that happened to me last week and I'm still scared. One of the
Mhm.
properties that I co-host for, the owner lives in Florida and she sent her handyman to come check on her property while I had guests there. I had no idea that her handyman was gonna show up, but that property back in the day, it's in a eclectic part of Austin, but it's beautiful. It's over the lake. It's lakefront property. And the handyman showed up with a gun because he was afraid that someone was trespassing. So my guest had a guy show up, knock on their door with a revolver in his hand, and luckily, we were able to talk the guest down because she called the police and everything. But I had to contact my owner and I was like, "Did you send somebody with a gun to the property?" She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for him to go guns blazing." But honestly, that property, I warned her, I said, "There's a chance that you're going to get shut down overnight for something that was mostly innocent." I mean, it is innocent. Like he was actually thinking that he was defending the property, but due to a misunderstanding, we could probably lose our listing overnight. But mind you, guns are legal here in Austin. We don't need a permit to carry here. So what he did wasn't illegal, but it did startle the guest. So, these things are going to happen. Not to say that it was right, but like some things, things are going to happen that are out of your control that you can lose your account overnight without you being able to control it. A friend of mine, he lost all his bookings. He lost like $25,000 in bookings this summer because he was shut down overnight. So it's really important for you to diversify where you get your bookings from. It's important for you to have a well-rounded business, be well connected. And I hate to say it, so cliche, but your network is your net worth.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I wish that there was a way to go into all these Facebook groups and just have an automated message that every time somebody says, I'm being shut down, this is happening, just be like, you know, start treating your Airbnb as a business and
Yes,
diversify.
right. If you have a asset that's a couple $100,000, wouldn't you protect it? So I think that if you don't do a direct booking website, at least at minimum, get a property management system that you can capture email addresses and phone numbers. That way, if you get shut down, at least you still have that source of information and you have a
Mhm.
warm lead to work with, someone that's already stayed in your property that you can say, hey, I offer direct booking now, and you can do that whenever you're ready.
And it's not just the issues with the platforms, regulations. I know here in BC what's going on, and I've had conversations with people, and they've been 100% on Airbnb. So the regulations are going to come in, and they have no guest details. They have nothing to continue that business
Yep.
and to continue the direct booking side of things. So it is a stark warning, I think, for everyone to diversify. And I know the people listening to this are like, we're preaching to the choir. They are direct booking focused. So we don't have to worry too much there.
Yes.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. Thank you so much, Vivian, for coming on today. It's been lovely to meet you. I'm going to put the links in the show notes. So corporaterentalsusa.com. And I'm going to put your socials in there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. Really
It's been
appreciate the
great.
opportunity to talk to your STR audience about the beauty and power of midterm rentals that helped me quit my six-figure corporate job and replace it with financial freedom and having my own business now. It's amazing.
No, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on.